Are you searching for spiritual guidance to help navigate life's challenges? C.S. Lewis, a man whose words have provided hope and clarity to millions, offers timeless wisdom that speaks to the heart of those seeking direction and encouragement. In this video, we'll explore 37 life-changing lessons from C.S. Lewis, drawn from his profound insights on faith, love, and the human journey. These lessons not only comfort the soul, but also provide the spiritual guidance you've been longing for. Whether you're looking for reassurance, strength, or a deeper understanding of life's purpose, Lewis's teachings will inspire and uplift you. His 37 profound statements invite us on a journey, one that goes beyond mere reflection. These phrases are keys, opening doors to deeper understanding, not only of the world around us, but also of our own souls. Through these concise yet deeply meaningful words, Lewis leads us into the heart of life's most fundamental questions. What do they reveal about the essence of truth, the fabric of morality, and the purpose of our existence? How do they challenge us to step beyond the surface of our thoughts and beliefs, encouraging us to dig into the depths of our spiritual and intellectual life? In this exploration, we'll not only examine the power of Lewis's insights, but also uncover timeless truths that resonate with our faith and our ongoing quest to connect with God. These are not just abstract ideas, they are universal lessons that guide us, offering light and wisdom in a world often clouded by uncertainty. C.S. Lewis once said, 1. Everything changes. Nothing ever stays the same. A profound reflection on the very essence of time and its impact on our lives. This truth speaks to the core of our existence, where change is the only constant we can rely on. Whether it's the laws of nature or the ebb and flow of our daily lives, we are in a state of continuous transformation, both personally and in the world around us. From societal shifts to personal growth, we cannot escape the undeniable reality that everything is in motion. Yet, as Lewis astutely points out, isn't it funny how day by day, nothing changes, but when you look back, everything is different? This captures the subtlety of change, reminding us that the gradual nature of it often goes unnoticed. We get caught up in the small details, barely perceiving the shifts happening around us. But when we take a step back and reflect on the broader picture, we realize just how much has changed. This is a powerful invitation to embrace each moment, recognizing that even when change feels invisible, it is shaping us, guiding us, and leading us forward in our spiritual journey with God. 2. There are far better things ahead than any we leave behind. This timeless reflection from C.S. Lewis invites us to embrace the future with hope and faith, especially when faced with moments of loss or uncertainty. It reminds us that no matter what challenges or heartaches we may endure, God is preparing something greater just ahead. The promise that the best is yet to come is a profound encouragement, particularly in times of transition when one chapter of our lives closes and a new, perhaps even more fulfilling chapter is waiting to unfold. Lewis touches on a deep spiritual truth, the fleeting nature of life and the dangers of holding on too tightly to what is past, whether material things or familiar comforts. Clinging to the past can often prevent us from fully experiencing the new opportunities that God places before us. By releasing what no longer serves us, we open our hearts and minds to the limitless possibilities of the future, trusting in the divine plan that is unfolding. The best is yet to come is not just a sentiment of optimism, it is a call to faith, inviting us to believe that God's wisdom is leading us toward greater blessings than we can imagine. Similarly, Lewis offers another powerful insight when he reflects, 3. Nothing in life is ours to keep. This profound truth speaks to the impermanent nature of all that we hold in life. possessions, relationships, even time itself. Yet Lewis invites us to see this not as a loss, but as an invitation to live generously, to give of ourselves, and to find deeper fulfillment in the act of sharing. In giving, we find a sense of purpose and joy that material possessions alone can never provide. It is through selflessness that we come to know the true richness of life. On a spiritual level, this idea suggests that true freedom comes from loosening our grip on worldly desires and selfish ambitions, connecting instead to something greater, something eternal. When we open our hearts to others, when we serve, love, and give generously, we discover a deeper, more enduring sense of belonging. It is in this connection, with God and with others, that we find the kind of fulfillment that transcends the temporary and fleeting. Finally, Lewis's profound statement, 4. Give up yourself and you will find your real self, encourages us to look beyond the surface of our desires and the layers of identity that we often create based on societal expectations or our own ego. He challenges us to step away from the superficial and seek the deeper truths within ourselves. It is only when we let go of our attachment to materialism, to external validation, and to the ego-driven pursuit of success, that we can truly connect with who we are meant to be in God's eyes. This process, though challenging, leads us to a more authentic and spiritually rich life, one that is rooted in eternal values rather than worldly ones. By releasing the need to constantly prove ourselves, we find the peace, purpose, and identity that God has always intended for us. 5. Do not doubt your value, and do not run from who you are. C.S. Lewis offers a profound reminder that our worth is not something we earn through achievements or approval from others, but something inherent within us as creations of God. In a world obsessed with comparison, where people often define their self-worth based on societal standards or the success of others, Lewis brings us back to the spiritual truth that our value lies in the simple yet powerful fact that we are made in God's image. This aligns with the biblical teaching found in Psalm 139 verse 14, which states that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. God's love and purpose for each individual is unique, and no worldly success or failure can alter that. When Lewis urges us not to run from who we are, he is challenging us to resist the pressures to conform or to hide our true selves out of fear of rejection or inadequacy. In modern society, especially with the influence of social media, many people feel the need to present a curated version of themselves to fit in or be accepted. Yet, true freedom comes when we embrace our full selves, imperfections and all. As the Apostle Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Our flaws, far from being obstacles, are avenues through which God's grace can shine. Additionally, Lewis's call for authenticity resonates with modern psychological principles of self-acceptance. Researchers such as Brené Brown have explored the power of vulnerability and how embracing our imperfections allows us to live more fully and meaningfully. By embracing who we truly are, we can stop striving to meet the expectations of others and start living in alignment with our true purpose. This is especially important in a world that constantly encourages us to chase after external validation, rather than seeking the deeper spiritual validation that comes from God. 6. If you find in yourself desires that nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that you were made for another world. Lewis captures the essence of a universal human experience, a sense of longing or incompleteness that no material possession or achievement can fulfill. This concept echoes Augustine's famous words, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." This deep spiritual restlessness is not a flaw, but a reminder that we are made for something greater than the temporary pleasures and pursuits of this world. This yearning can be seen in various spiritual and philosophical traditions. For instance, Buddhism teaches that human suffering is largely the result of attachment to transient things, and true peace comes from detaching from worldly desires. In Christianity, this idea is expanded further. It is not only about detaching from the material world, but also about seeking a personal relationship with God, the source of eternal fulfillment. Lewis's reflection here invites us to recognize that earthly joys, while good, are incomplete. They are reflections of a deeper, eternal joy that only God can provide. In our everyday lives, we often chase after career success, financial stability, or personal recognition, thinking that these things will finally bring us happiness. But as many people find, even after achieving these goals, there remains a void, an unfulfilled desire that lingers. This is because, as Lewis suggests, we are not made solely for this world, but for eternity. This is a powerful reminder, especially in a culture that emphasizes material wealth and achievement as the ultimate markers of success. True satisfaction comes not from accumulating more, but from nurturing our relationship with God and aligning our lives with His purpose. For practical application, Lewis's message encourages us to examine where we are placing our hope and fulfillment. Are we seeking temporary happiness through material means, or are we aligning ourselves with the eternal promises of God? This can be a helpful reflection for Christians striving to balance their daily responsibilities with their spiritual journey. By shifting our focus from the fleeting to the eternal, we can find peace even in the midst of life's uncertainties, knowing that we are on a pilgrimage towards something far greater. 7. You don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body. C.S. Lewis offers a powerful redefinition of what it means to be human. In a world that often prioritizes the material and the physical, Lewis redirects our attention to the core of our existence, our soul. By stating, "You are a soul," Lewis emphasizes that the soul is not something we possess, but the very essence of who we are. The body, as valuable as it may be, is merely a vessel, temporary and fleeting, while the soul is eternal, transcending time and the physical world. This perspective reminds us that our true identity is found not in our physical form, but in the spiritual reality that continues beyond death. This view aligns with the teachings found in Christianity and many other spiritual traditions, which see life on earth as a preparation for the soul's eternal journey. As Lewis eloquently expresses, each of you will still be alive after the dissolution of the physical universe. He invites us to reflect on the nature of our existence, not as limited by time and space, but as part of an everlasting spiritual reality. This reminder calls us to live with eternity in mind, recognizing that the choices we make and the way we nurture our souls have lasting, eternal consequences. In a world focused on the temporary, this truth is both sobering and freeing, encouraging us to focus on what truly matters. 8. Don't shine so others can see you. Shine so that through you others can see God. Lewis calls us to a higher purpose in how we live our lives. In a culture that often celebrates personal achievement and recognition, he urges us to shift our focus away from seeking personal glory. Instead, we are invited to live in a way that reflects something far greater, God's light and love. By allowing our lives to be a mirror of divine goodness, We become instruments through which others can glimpse God's grace, mercy, and truth. This call to humility is deeply rooted in Christian teaching. We are not here to elevate ourselves, but to point others toward the source of all goodness. Our actions, words, and even our very presence should inspire others to seek God, not for our own recognition, but for His glory. This perspective encourages a life of service, where we focus on helping others find their connection to God. It is a reminder that our true purpose lies not in being the center of attention, but in quietly and humbly leading others toward the light of the divine. In this, Lewis invites us to a life that transcends self-interest. It is a call to generosity, to live authentically, and to serve with a heart full of love, knowing that the greatest gift we can offer is to help others see God through the way we live. By letting go of the need to shine for ourselves, we allow the light of God to shine even brighter through us, touching the lives of those around us in profound, transformative ways. 9. Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. In life, we all face moments of hardship, times when everything seems to go wrong, and we question why we must endure such pain. C.S. Lewis offers us a powerful reminder that these trials are not just random difficulties, but essential parts of God's plan to help us grow. When I reflect on my own life, it's clear that the most difficult seasons were also the ones where I grew the most spiritually and emotionally. The obstacles we encounter, though painful, have a way of refining us, stripping away our insecurities and teaching us to lean on God's strength, not our own. What Lewis is pointing to is a truth that resonates across many religious and philosophical traditions. In Buddhism, for example, suffering is seen as a teacher, guiding us toward enlightenment by helping us let go of attachment to worldly desires. Similarly, in Christianity, hardships are seen as opportunities to draw closer to God, building resilience, humility, and compassion. Every trial, no matter how difficult, holds a lesson that prepares us for something greater, something beyond what we can see in the present moment. In my own experience, and in observing the lives of others, I've seen that the moments when we feel most lost or defeated are often the times when God is doing His most profound work in us. The delays and difficulties we face are not signs of failure, but rather part of the preparation for something extraordinary. Lewis's words, "God does not make us wait unless there is a good reason," remind us that waiting is not wasted time. It's during these periods of waiting that God shapes our character, deepens our faith, and equips us for the extraordinary purpose He has prepared for us. 10. Experience is the most brutal of teachers. When we think about the lessons life teaches us, it's easy to see how the most profound ones often come through failure and hardship. Unlike the gentle learning we experience in a classroom, real-life lessons are often brutal. They come through loss, rejection, and disappointment. But these are also the lessons that stay with us the longest. I remember failing at something I cared deeply about, and at the time, it felt like the end of the world. Yet looking back, I realized that failure taught me resilience, patience, and a deeper reliance on God. Lewis's observation that experience is the most brutal of teachers, but you learn, is something we all come to understand as we navigate life. It's through our most painful moments that we grow the most. Success may be enjoyable, but it doesn't teach us nearly as much as failure does. The harshness of life's lessons is what engraves them into our hearts, shaping us into wiser, more compassionate individuals. And while we may not appreciate the lesson in the moment, we later recognize its invaluable role in preparing us for the path God has set before us. 11. Every failure is a signpost on the journey toward success. Failures, often seen as stumbling blocks, can instead be understood as part of God's divine plan for us. When Lewis compares them to signposts, he's highlighting that each misstep is not a punishment, but rather a nudge in the direction we need to go. In the Bible, we often see how failures lead to great blessings. Take the story of Joseph, who endured hardship and betrayal. Yet God used those very setbacks to place him in a position of power and influence. The truth is, our failures can refine us. God uses them to teach us patience, to help us grow in faith, and to shape us into the people He intends us to be. Each failure, then, isn't just a lesson. It's a marker on the road to becoming more Christ-like. This is why failing forward is such a powerful idea. Instead of viewing our shortcomings as reasons to give up, we should see them as God's way of redirecting us towards something even greater. Our failures may hurt, but they also prepare us for the victories He has planned. When you fail, instead of asking, "Why me?" try asking, "What is God teaching me in this moment?" This change in perspective allows us to see our struggles not as the end of the road, but as part of the journey God is guiding us through. 12. You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. Lewis boldly asserts that age is not a barrier to new beginnings, and this resonates deeply with the biblical message of hope and renewal. Take Abraham, for instance, who was called to father a nation well into his old age. His story is a testament to the truth that God can use anyone, at any stage of life, to fulfill His purposes. In our modern world, society often imposes limits on what we can achieve based on age, but God's plan for us defies these expectations. Whether we're 30 or 80, God's call to dream and set new goals never fades. He may be calling you to a new ministry, to pursue a passion you've buried, or to impact others in ways you hadn't imagined. No matter your age, He continues to plant new dreams in your heart. This is an invitation to look beyond the limitations of time and see life as an ongoing journey of renewal. If you feel like you've missed your chance, remember that God is always working behind the scenes, orchestrating something beyond what you can see. Just like the seasons of nature, our lives go through cycles of growth, rest, and renewal, and each one is part of God's grand design for us. When you embrace this truth, it allows you to find joy and purpose in every phase of life. It's never too late to follow the dreams that God has placed within you. 13. Don't let your happiness depend on something you may lose. This powerful idea gently reminds us of the fragile nature of worldly happiness. When we place our joy in things that are fleeting, like possessions, recognition, or relationships, we risk losing it when those things inevitably change or fade. Lewis encourages us to seek a deeper, more stable happiness, one that is grounded in the eternal and unchanging. Rather than building our sense of fulfillment on external achievements or temporary circumstances, we are invited to find joy in qualities that endure, such as faith, gratitude, love, and peace within our hearts. These are gifts that no loss or hardship can strip away. Through this shift in perspective, we discover that true happiness is not dependent on what we have, but rather on who we are becoming in our journey with God. When we align our joy with the eternal, we cultivate resilience, learning to find peace and contentment, even amidst life's uncertainties. 14. This world is a great sculptor's shop. This vivid metaphor speaks to the ongoing transformation we experience as we move through life. Lewis likens the world to a workshop where each of us is a unique masterpiece in the making. Life's challenges, Our encounters and even our sorrows are the tools used to shape and refine us, carving out the contours of our character. In this workshop, we are unfinished works, molded by the steady hands of the master sculptor. Each joy, each trial, and each moment of reflection serves a purpose in chiseling away what is not essential, revealing the beauty of our true nature. Through this process, we are drawn closer to the divine image we were always meant to bear. The idea that some statues may come to life hints at a deeper spiritual awakening, a moment when we fully embrace our calling and experience the fullness of God's grace. It is the moment of transformation, where we rise above our past limitations and step into the abundant life that God has prepared for us. In this divine studio, we are constantly being shaped for something greater, for a purpose far beyond our current understanding. 15. We are mirrors whose brightness, if we are bright, is wholly derived from the sun that shines upon us. When Lewis compares us to mirrors, he beautifully illustrates that our light, our goodness, and even our joy are reflections of a higher divine source. This source, much like the sun that brightens everything in its path, represents the love, grace, and truth of God. Our radiance is not something we create on our own, but something we receive, something that shines through us because of our connection to this eternal light. To truly reflect this brightness, we must keep our inner selves pure and open, like a polished mirror that can capture the fullest glow of the sun. If we allow our hearts and minds to be clouded by pride, fear, or selfish desires, this divine light becomes dimmed. Just as a smudged lens distorts the image of the stars, so too can our spiritual neglect blur our vision of God's love and purpose. To see clearly and to shine brightly, we are called to continually seek a clean, humble spirit, ready to reflect the beauty of the Creator who gives us life and meaning. 16. There are two kinds of people, those who say to God, "Thy will be done," and those to whom God says, "In the end, thy will be done." Lewis draws a profound contrast between two kinds of people. The first are those who willingly choose to surrender to God's plan, placing their trust in His wisdom and divine love. By saying, "Your will be done," they open their hearts to God's guidance, understanding that His purpose for them is far greater than any plan they could design for themselves. This act of submission is not a loss of freedom, but a beautiful act of trust, allowing God to lead them to the fullness of life He intends. On the other hand, when God says, "Your will be done," He honors the freedom He has given each of us. For those who choose their own way, even if it leads away from Him, God allows them the space to live by their choices. It is a gentle reminder that while God desires all to come to Him, He respects our freedom to decide. And in that freedom we find both the beauty of divine love and the responsibility of our choices. In either case, we are reminded that our path is shaped by our willingness to align with God's will, or to walk our own way. The choice is ours, but so too are the blessings or consequences that come from that choice. 17. C.S. Lewis's reflection. I have no duty to be anyone's friend, and no man in the world has a duty to be mine. No claims, no shadow of necessity. Friendship is unnecessary, like philosophy, like art, like the universe itself, for God did not need to create it. It has no survival value. Rather, it is one of those things which give value to survival. Friendship, as C.S. Lewis beautifully suggests, is not something we need for physical survival like food or shelter, but it plays an essential role in making life meaningful. Much like the universe and the arts, friendship exists not out of necessity, but out of beauty and the joy it brings to our souls. Lewis points out that no one is required to have friends, just as no one is obligated to be one. This freedom allows friendships to be chosen, not forced, which makes them so precious. Friendships are not built on duty, but on a mutual desire to walk through life together, sharing experiences, thoughts, and emotions. In this way, friendship mirrors the love of God, freely given, unearned, and deeply fulfilling. It is a bond that brings authenticity and joy, filling our days with meaning beyond mere existence. When we reflect on the creation of the universe, we see that God did not create out of necessity, but out of love and creativity. Similarly, friendships are not necessary for survival, but they add layers of richness to our lives. They inspire us, uplift us, and remind us of the beauty of human connection. Friendship, like God's grace, is a gift that enhances our journey, bringing light and warmth to our hearts, making life not only bearable, but deeply fulfilling. So, true friendship, like God's love, enriches our lives beyond measure. 18. You will never make a good impression on other people until you stop thinking about what sort of impression you are making. Lewis offers a profound insight into human relationships, reminding us that true connection is found not in trying to manage how others perceive us, but in embracing who we are with honesty and humility. The more we focus on shaping our image, the harder it becomes to connect with others in a meaningful way. When we let go of the pressure to impress and simply live authentically, we invite deeper, more genuine relationships. Authenticity brings vulnerability and openness, qualities that mirror the way God desires for us to approach Him. Just as God calls us to come as we are, unguarded and sincere, we are called to approach others with the same honesty. In doing so, we find that true influence comes not from trying to control how we are seen, but from being fully present and real in our interactions. Lewis gently reminds us that when we stop worrying about how we appear to others, we free ourselves to listen, engage, and love more deeply. Authenticity fosters trust and creates space for relationships that are far richer and more lasting than any persona we could try to construct. In this way, our presence, grounded in truth, becomes far more impactful than any effort to impress. Authenticity creates connections that far outweigh any attempt to impress. 19. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Embracing love means accepting the beauty and risk of vulnerability. When we open ourselves to love, whether for people, animals, or causes, there is always a potential for pain. But C.S. Lewis suggests that without this openness, we miss out on one of the most beautiful gifts God offers, the ability to deeply connect and care. Love, in its truest form, mirrors God's unconditional love for us, which is freely given despite the risks of rejection or sorrow. By isolating ourselves, we may avoid heartache, but we also lose the profound joy that only love can bring. In the Christian faith, we see Jesus' example of boundless love, a love that embraced suffering to bring redemption. This reflects the paradox that Lewis mentions. When we try to protect our hearts from pain by building walls around them, we also block out the potential for love to enrich our lives. A heart kept from love grows cold and detached, losing the ability to feel compassion, joy, or connection. Only by being open to vulnerability can we experience love in its fullest sense. Through this, we not only experience human connection, but we also grow closer to understanding the nature of God's love for us, a love that transforms and uplifts. 20. What draws people to be friends is that they see the same truth. True friendship, according to Lewis, is not about convenience or fleeting interests. It is built upon a foundation of mutual understanding and shared values. In the context of Christian faith, friendships rooted in a shared love for God and a common pursuit of spiritual growth are particularly meaningful. These relationships reflect a deeper bond, as both individuals journey together through life, grounded in truths that transcend the material world. A friendship that is based on shared faith offers support and encouragement that goes beyond the surface level. Friends united by common beliefs can help each other grow spiritually, facing challenges with a shared sense of purpose. They are like companions walking the same path toward understanding God's will in their lives. As Proverbs 27:17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." In this way, friendships are not just about shared experiences, but about helping one another grow in character and faith. Friendships of this kind become sacred spaces where deeper conversations can flourish, where vulnerability and honesty are embraced. Such bonds strengthen our walk with God and give us a sense of belonging, comfort, and joy that cannot be easily found in casual relationships. These friendships, like our relationship with God, are nurtured by trust, shared experiences, and the commitment to seek truth together. 21. Love is a steady wish for the loved person's ultimate good. C.S. Lewis expands the idea of love beyond fleeting emotions or physical attraction, drawing our attention to its deeper, more intentional nature. True love, he suggests, is about actively pursuing the ultimate well-being of the one you care about, even if it means putting aside your own desires or needs. This idea resonates deeply with the Christian principle of sacrificial love, as demonstrated by Christ. When we love in this way, it's not just about feeling affection, it's about making a conscious daily decision to uplift and support others, no matter the cost. Just as Jesus sought the greatest good for humanity, even through suffering, we too are called to love in a way that mirrors that dedication. Love, in its truest form, is not something passive. It is a commitment to act, to make choices that prioritize the happiness and spiritual growth of others. Lewis acknowledges that while we may desire the absolute best for those we love, life's limitations and challenges may prevent us from achieving perfection. However, it's the striving toward that good within the reality of our circumstances that shapes love into something profound and life-changing. When we love with the heart of Christ, we transform our relationships, making them a reflection of God's grace and goodness. This love transcends mere feelings, becoming a guiding force that brings purpose, fulfillment, and spiritual growth to both ourselves and those we love. 22. Do not waste time bothering whether you love your neighbor. Act as if you did, and you will. Lewis encourages us to take a more practical, action-driven approach to loving others, particularly our neighbors. Instead of becoming paralyzed by doubt or self-reflection, wondering if we truly love someone, he suggests we begin by simply acting with kindness and care. This echoes the teachings of Jesus, who calls us to love others through our actions, not just our words or feelings. In moments when we may not feel love for our neighbors, the act of choosing to serve, to help, and to care for them can lead us to develop genuine affection. Love is not just an emotion, but a series of choices we make every day. By choosing to love through our deeds, even when our emotions are uncertain, we allow our hearts to be softened and transformed. Over time, these acts of love become the foundation for real, heartfelt connections. This principle is deeply rooted in Christian teaching, where love is seen as both a command and a gift. Just as Jesus loved and served others unconditionally, we too are called to live out that love, trusting that our actions will shape our hearts, By stepping into love through service and compassion, we open ourselves to the transformative power of love, both in our relationships and within ourselves. The more we act in love, the more we grow into people who embody that love in all aspects of life. 23. No man knows how bad he is till he has tried very hard to be good. C.S. Lewis's insight into human nature reminds us that the true depth of our imperfections is only revealed when we sincerely try to live according to high moral standards. It is in the act of striving to do good, of trying and sometimes failing, that we come to realize how persistent and deeply ingrained our weaknesses can be. The Christian journey is not about achieving perfection, but about walking humbly, knowing that we will fall short. However, this awareness of our limitations is not meant to discourage us. On the contrary, it teaches us to rely on God's grace. Just as Paul says in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." In recognizing our flaws, we find opportunities for growth, not through our strength, but through the strength that God provides. It is this understanding of our own brokenness that cultivates deeper compassion for ourselves and for others, because we all share this common human struggle for virtue. As in the story of Peter in the Gospels, Peter, who was eager to follow Christ, discovered his own shortcomings when he denied Jesus 3 times. Yet this failure wasn't the end of Peter's journey. It was the beginning of his growth in humility and reliance on God's strength. In the same way, our flaws become opportunities for God's grace to work in us. We learn, through these trials, to lean less on our own abilities and more on God's power to transform us from within. Each struggle becomes a step closer to understanding the depth of God's mercy and compassion. 24. In God, there is no hunger that needs to be filled, only plenteousness that desires to give. Lewis invites us to reflect on the nature of divine love, showing how God's giving is unlike anything we experience in human relationships. In our lives, we often give with the hope of receiving something in return, whether it be affection, recognition, or a sense of fulfillment. But God gives out of an overflowing abundance with no expectation of repayment. His love is not based on need, for he lacks nothing. Instead, his desire is purely to share the fullness of his love and grace with us. This kind of love is perfectly illustrated in the story of the prodigal son, Luke 15:11-32, where the father's forgiveness and joy in welcoming his lost son home is not driven by what the son can give in return. It is simply the father's desire to love and bless him. In the same way, God's generosity calls us to trust in his provision, knowing that his gifts come from a place of perfect love. This reflection challenges us to evaluate our own motivations for giving. Are we giving freely, or are we seeking something in return? As we align ourselves more with God's heart, we are called to give generously, without strings attached, just as he does. 25. If a person thinks she is not conceited, she is very conceited indeed. Lewis's thoughts on humility challenge us to reconsider how we approach this virtue. It's not something that can be flaunted or proven. Rather, it is seen in how we quietly acknowledge our limitations and place others above ourselves. The moment we start seeking praise for our humility, we've likely lost it. The story of Jesus washing the disciples' feet, John 13:1-17, is the perfect example of humility in action. Jesus, the Son of God, humbled himself to serve others, demonstrating that true humility is not about position or power, but about loving and serving others without seeking recognition. In the Christian context, humility is closely tied to our relationship with God. By recognizing our dependence on Him, we stop striving to prove ourselves to others. Instead, we are free to live sincerely, allowing our actions to reflect Christ's humility. It is through these quiet acts of service and love that we demonstrate real humility, when we stop seeking acknowledgement and simply live in the light of God's grace. 26. Pride is spiritual cancer. Lewis's portrayal of pride as a spiritual sickness strikes at the heart of what it means to disconnect from God. Pride is not just about thinking highly of ourselves. It's about focusing so much on our own desires, status, and achievements that we lose sight of others, and ultimately, of God. It's the sin that led to the fall of Lucifer, who chose to elevate himself above God, Isaiah 14:12-15. Jesus' parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector, Luke 18:9-14, illustrates how pride distorts our view of others and of God. The Pharisee, filled with self-righteous pride, looked down on others, while the humble tax collector sought mercy, knowing his own unworthiness. Pride keeps us looking down, unable to see God's higher calling for our lives. To overcome pride, we must learn to look up, acknowledging that everything we have comes from God. Only then can we truly open our hearts to His love and experience the fullness of life that He desires for us. Humility allows us to break free from the chains of pride and walk in the light of God's grace, leading to deeper joy, love, and spiritual growth. 27. Only the pure in heart want to see God. C.S. Lewis captures a profound spiritual truth in this statement, highlighting the connection between purity of heart and the desire to know God. Those who are pure in heart, free from selfish motives, deceit, and pride, naturally long to draw closer to the divine. Their hearts are aligned with goodness and truth, making them open and receptive to God's presence. This purity is not simply about being morally good. It's about having a clear and sincere desire to seek what is right, without the distractions of worldly passions or selfish ambitions. Lewis emphasizes that only when the heart is purified from pride and self-interest can it genuinely yearn to know God. This journey towards God begins with inner cleansing, removing anything that blocks our spiritual vision. Just as the Beatitudes in Matthew 5:8 remind us, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." This purity of heart brings clarity, allowing us to perceive and experience God more fully in our lives. 28. Human history is the long, terrible story of man trying to find something other than God which will make him happy. Lewis's reflection on humanity's pursuit of happiness apart from God speaks volumes about the futility of seeking fulfillment through material means. Throughout history, people have chased wealth, power, pleasure, and status, only to find themselves unsatisfied and longing for more. Lewis points out that true happiness is not found in temporary things, but in a deep, abiding relationship with God. He reminds us that no matter how much we accumulate or achieve in this world, there is an emptiness that only God can fill. As Psalm 16:11 beautifully states, "In your presence there is fullness of joy." Lewis invites us to stop chasing fleeting sources of joy, and instead turn to God, who is the ultimate source of peace and happiness. The tragedies of history, wars, greed, and oppression, are, in Lewis's view, a testament to humanity's relentless but misguided search for fulfillment. Only by seeking God can we find the lasting joy our hearts truly crave. 29. Forgiving does not mean excusing. In this statement, Lewis makes an important distinction between forgiveness and excusing. He reminds us that forgiving someone does not mean that we are minimizing the hurt they caused, or pretending that their actions were justified. Instead, forgiveness is about letting go of the desire for revenge or holding on to resentment, while still acknowledging the wrong that was done. True forgiveness is an act of grace. It involves releasing the burden of anger and bitterness, but it doesn't require us to excuse or forget the offense. In fact, by acknowledging the seriousness of the wrong, we can offer forgiveness with integrity. As Ephesians 4:32 teaches us, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. Forgiveness heals our hearts, allowing us to move forward without being weighed down by the past, while still holding on to the truth of what happened. 30. Thirst was made for water, inquiry for truth. Lewis's analogy between thirst and the search for truth is a beautiful reminder of our innate desire to understand and know. Just as our bodies cannot survive without water, our spirits crave truth to nourish our souls. This natural drive for understanding and clarity is what leads us to explore, question, and seek deeper meaning in life. Lewis suggests that this search for truth is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is fundamental to our spiritual well-being. Proverbs 2:3-5 encourages us to seek wisdom and understanding, as one would search for hidden treasure, promising that you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. This thirst for truth, much like our physical thirst for water, propels us on a journey of discovery, pushing us closer to God as we seek answers to life's most profound questions. It is through this quest for truth that we grow in faith, wisdom, and understanding. 31. Faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted in spite of your changing moods. C.S. Lewis beautifully illustrates that faith is not just a fleeting feeling or blind belief, but a deliberate and ongoing commitment to truths once recognized by reason. He reminds us that true faith stands firm, even when our emotions shift or life throws challenges our way. When reason has affirmed certain principles, it's faith that helps us hold on to them, especially when doubt, fear, or confusion cloud our minds. Lewis's perspective on faith encourages us to see it as an active choice, a constant effort to stay grounded in what we know to be true. Faith, in this sense, becomes an art, something we must practice and nurture, much like a skill that grows stronger with dedication. This view of faith also shows us that reason and faith are not opposites. Instead, they complement each other. By anchoring our beliefs in reason and practicing faith when emotions attempt to pull us away, we learn to trust not only in God, but also in the wisdom and understanding that God has given us. For example, in moments of deep grief or loss, faith keeps us rooted in the belief that God's love remains constant, even when our hearts are broken. 32. We meet no ordinary people in our lives. C.S. Lewis's reflection on human interactions challenges us to see the uniqueness in every person we meet. He reminds us that even the briefest of encounters carries the potential for something profound. Whether it's a stranger on the street or someone we see every day, each individual is a rich tapestry of experiences, dreams, and potential that often goes unnoticed. This perspective encourages us to look beyond the surface and recognize the depth within every person. Imagine someone who seems to play a minor role in your life, a colleague, a neighbor, or even a cashier. Lewis invites us to consider the unseen stories they carry, the wisdom they may possess, and the kindness they might share. By embracing this mindset, we cultivate a deeper respect for humanity and begin to see every interaction as an opportunity to connect with someone valuable. In doing so, we follow Christ's example, who saw the worth in everyone, from the tax collector to the Samaritan woman, valuing their hearts over their outward status. 33. Everyone thinks forgiveness is a lovely idea until he has something to forgive. Lewis speaks directly to the difficulty of forgiveness, a virtue that seems so noble in theory, but becomes profoundly challenging in practice. It's easy to agree with the idea of forgiveness when we're not the ones who have been hurt. But when betrayal, pain, or disappointment come knocking at our own door, the true test of forgiveness begins. At that moment, forgiveness is not just a concept, it's a choice that requires us to wrestle with our emotions, our sense of justice, and sometimes even our pride. Forgiveness does not mean pretending the hurt didn't happen, nor does it mean excusing the wrong. Instead, it involves letting go of resentment and offering grace, even when it feels undeserved. This mirrors the way God forgives us freely and without condition. Just as Jesus forgave those who wronged him, we are called to extend the same mercy, not because it's easy, but because it's transformative, for both the forgiver and the forgiven. 34. Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. C.S. Lewis defines integrity as something far more profound than simply following rules or seeking approval. It's about consistently choosing what's right, based on our moral and spiritual values, regardless of external pressure or personal gain. Integrity isn't just about looking good in the eyes of others. It's about living in alignment with the truth, even when we're the only ones who will know. This kind of integrity requires inner strength. It's about making the right decisions in the quiet moments when no one is watching, knowing that our character is shaped by these unseen choices. For example, choosing honesty over convenience in a small matter or helping someone without expecting recognition. These are the actions that define true integrity. By living this way, we honor the values we hold dear. And more importantly, we reflect the image of God in our daily lives as Christ himself lived with unwavering integrity. 35. Children are not a distraction from more important work. They are the most important work. C.S. Lewis beautifully captures the essence of parenting, reminding us that raising children is not a task that competes with more important work. It is, in fact, the most important work. Parenting is not just a duty or obligation, but a sacred responsibility, shaping the future through the lives of those we guide. Lewis invites us to see children not as interruptions in our daily lives, but as the very reason for many of the things we do. Their upbringing, nurturing, and education are central to any meaningful life's work. By caring for children, we do more than provide for their physical needs. We nurture their hearts, their minds, and their spirits. The time and love we invest in them help build their character, instill values, and prepare them for the challenges and joys of adulthood. Through this, we shape the world, one child at a time. 36. A children's story that can only be enjoyed by children is not a good children's story. Lewis argues that the best stories for children are those that resonate with people of all ages. A story that only entertains children, in his view, fails to reach its full potential. Great children's literature carries messages, adventures, and emotions that touch not only the hearts of the young but also those of the old, reminding us of the wonder and magic we all share, regardless of age. Such stories invite us to remember the joy of discovery, the power of imagination, and the timeless truths that guide our lives. A well-told children's tale may spark laughter, offer wisdom, or stir emotions in adults just as much as in children. Lewis believes that these narratives rich in meaning help maintain our connection to innocence, curiosity, and a sense of wonder, qualities we often lose as we grow older. It is a reminder that the magic of storytelling is a gift that bridges generations, inviting all to rediscover the world with a childlike heart. 37. True humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. Lewis presents a refreshing view of humility, reminding us that it is not about thinking less of ourselves, but about thinking less about ourselves. Genuine humility isn't self-deprecation, nor is it about downplaying our gifts. Rather, it's about shifting our focus outward, placing the needs and well-being of others at the forefront of our hearts. This form of humility fosters kindness, compassion, and a spirit of service. It is about recognizing our own worth while understanding that true greatness lies in how we elevate those around us. Humility invites us to serve without seeking recognition, to give without expecting something in return. It is in this act of selflessness that we discover a deeper connection to the people around us and to the values we hold dear. Lewis gently reminds us that humility is not about losing ourselves, but about finding a richer, more generous way to live. 37. C.S. Lewis's reflections offer a profound and inspiring mosaic of wisdom, touching on the deeper elements of human existence, faith, morality, and the complexities of life. Each quote presents a window into the core values that shape our journey, whether it's our personal growth, our relationships with others, or our walk with God. These reflections invite us not only to ponder life's greatest questions, but to look inward, seeking truth, and striving for genuine transformation. One key takeaway from Lewis's thoughts is the significance of living with authenticity, integrity, and a deep connection to what is true. He calls us to move beyond surface appearances, to seek the real meaning beneath life's complexities, and to pursue a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world. This journey towards wisdom is not about accumulating knowledge for its own sake, but about cultivating a spirit of reflection that leads to a fuller, more meaningful existence. Lewis also shines a light on the virtues that enrich our lives: empathy, love, humility, and forgiveness. He reminds us that these virtues are not just ideals to admire from a distance, but daily practices that transform how we live, interact, and care for those around us. By nurturing compassion and gratitude, we grow into more complete, fulfilled individuals, capable of spreading love and kindness in a world that deeply needs it. A recurring theme throughout his reflections is that true happiness and fulfillment cannot be found in material achievements or external success. Instead, lasting joy arises from our connection with God, the nurturing of meaningful relationships, and a life of service to others. Lewis invites us to reconsider what we value most and encourages us to shift our focus from worldly pursuits to spiritual and relational riches. Ultimately, C.S. Lewis reminds us that life is a continuous adventure, a quest for meaning, purpose, and transcendence. His words challenge us to face life's uncertainties with courage and resilience, to trust in God's guiding hand, and to actively seek out truth, goodness, and beauty in the world around us. In this way, we are not only shaped by life's journey, but are also called to help shape the world with love, hope, and faith.